Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the January 11th work session of the City Council. We're obviously holding this virtual. I have an abundance of caution for keep everybody safe because of COVID. Sandy, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Rogers.
Here.
Ms. Ramsey.
Here.
Mayor Pons.
Here.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Here.
Mr. Maslin.
Here.
Great. That takes us to item 3 on our agenda. We have anything for council preview, Mr. City Manager?
Sure. We have a couple things on the agenda for Thursday. The first item is a public hearing regarding a parking lot in the Colonial Williamsburg area of near Merchant Square, where they're going to eliminate 14 parking spaces. Then we will have, under new business, a budget amendment to accept some monies received in 2 different grants.
Good. Should be a short meeting. Do we have any public comments? Sandy or Mark, anybody on hold or calling in?
We do not.
I do not have any.
Okay. Well, that takes us to agenda item 4, background presentations. We have a presentation and update concerning the occasion for the arts, including a 2020 virtual event outcome. Am I going right to Ms. Wigley or Andrew, or do you have anything to? Okay. Well, Ms. Wigley, thank you for joining us virtually and look forward to hearing from you. And it's certainly nice to meet you. I don't believe that we've met before.
I don't know that we have either, but it is nice to be here, and I thank you all for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to know that we have the support of the city behind us when we go to put on this rather large and involved event. So I do have a presentation. So if somebody can, I think I can just hit the share button down here. Is that going to work for me?
That should work.
Okay. Are we all?
We see your screen.
We can see it.
All right. So I do have just a little bit of a background to share with you in case there's people who don't know too much about the occasion for the arts. But yes, 52 years. That's how long we have been around and sharing art and music and culture in Williamsburg. We began in 1969 with 20 artists on a Sunday afternoon, which has now grown to 2019 anyway, and to Williamsburg's, what we feel is Williamsburg's premier art and music festival, a 2-day event, including a Saturday evening event, over 140 juried artists from all around the US, 27 performance groups. We're the only local juried youth art show for students every year, for all students, which is it's a big deal and something we really want to focus more on. And partnerships with dozens of local businesses and organizations each year. So who is AOFTA? We are a 20-member all-volunteer board who perform roles in bookkeeping and accounting, marketing, PR and advertising, performance management, youth art, logistics and decor, volunteers, and food and beverage. So it's a lot to manage, and it's all done with volunteers. We have one part-time contracted employee, our artistic director, who is this year's Robin Markowitz. New to our organization, and she manages the artistic selection process, curates the whole show, and manages all aspects of artist relations. And we're happy to have her with us this year. This was after the departure of Leo Charette, who's been a part of the organization the last 6 years. So when and where is AOFTA? Always the first weekend in October. This year, October 3 and 4. On the Duke of Gloucester Street, Boundary Street, and Prince George. There's a little layout that kind of shows what our footprint looks like or has looked like for the past few years. So we do take up a lot of space, but we feel like any inconvenience this causes is well worth it to the city of Williamsburg. So why is there AOFTA? Well, because we feel like the arts are fundamental to humanity. They inspire us, they foster creativity, goodness, they bring us joy. Art helps express our values and build bridges between cultures. And they're a fundamental component of a healthy community, strengthening us socially, educationally, and economically. 74% of Americans, and these are facts that I have gotten from different areas, believe the arts unify us regardless of age, race, or ethnicity. Tourism and revenue. In a normal year, over $500,000 in sales would generate $30,000 in state and local tax revenue. In addition to all the meals that are purchased, hotel stays, and other retail purchases. Academic performance, there's higher GPAs and standardized test scores and college-going rates for communities that support the arts. And a higher social impact with higher civic engagement and more social cohesion. So how is AOFTA? Well, we're very well, thank you. We are a very healthy organization. We have an annual operating budget of about $135,000. We have reserve funding of $70,000. We receive support annually from the city of Williamsburg, thank you very much, to around $20,000. The Williamsburg Area Arts Commission, somewhere around $10,000 to $13,000 annually. We bring about $20,000 a year in from local businesses as sponsors. And then our local donors provide about $6,000 a year in funding. Additional revenue that we might have supports a Williamsburg Community Foundation grant to support local arts. So AOFTA in 2020, the virtual year. This was a huge decision for us to make, not made lightly at all, but we received a tremendous amount of encouragement from the city and the Williamsburg Area Arts Commission to move forward with the virtual event. And so it was actually because of your support that we were able to make this big decision. Many other art shows, not just in Virginia, but all across the US, just threw in the towel and said, we're not going to do it this year. So we were really pleased that we had the support, and that and I was really so pleased that my board came right on and said, yes, we're going to do this, and we're going to do it the very best we can. So it was a big effort by the executive committee, the artistic director, our marketing committee, and our webmaster. We had lots of meetings. We did a complete revamp of the website to make it work for virtual participation. We secured a location in Colonial Williamsburg for a live broadcast for 2 days, and broadcast it out for all the world to see. So we achieved these things, and so we had a lot of good. There was some bad, but there really wasn't any ugly, so that's good. So let's start with the bad. Let's just start with what did not happen. Going against us for 2 days of virtual programming, it was a gorgeous weekend. It was the first weekend in October. It was just fabulously gorgeous. And so not a lot of people just wanted to hang around inside and watch our live stream, because right at that time, Virginia had started to open up. And there were other venues where you could go in person and see live music. And in fact, one of our performers performed with us inside for our live stream, and immediately left us and went across the street to a bar and played there for 4 hours. And so it was tough to get a viewing audience. Yeah, artist sales, dismal. Really just nothing happening there. And virtual participation, very low. It was extremely well done. We learned a lot, but so that's kind of where the bad was. But let's go to the good, because there was a lot of good. Number one, we absolutely did accomplish what we set out to do. We had an interactive online 2-day art and live performance show. The artist requirements forced them to step up and be better online artists and marketers. They had to have a good headshot. We required them to have a web store, not just a web page, but a place where people could buy. They had to create a short video. They had to learn Zoom technology. We encouraged all of them to set up Zoom sessions. So they all had to learn Zoom technology, and a lot of them learned to use social media for marketing, or at least started to realize the impact that social media has on their marketing. The artists who did very little online marketing, did not reach out to their consumers through email, nothing really happened. But the artists that really know social media and know how to reach their customers actually had a pretty successful weekend. So it was a huge learning episode for our artists, and they were very appreciative. Even though they didn't have much in the way of sales, they learned a lot, and we forced them to do that, and they were really, really appreciative of that. And now they'll be better for in the future. So any other virtual show they participate in, they'll be better, and they'll be more prepared, and because of what they learned from us. The live performers were very grateful for a paid gig, after most of them not having had one for quite a few months. Our sponsorship support was still amazing, $16,000. For a live show, we usually get maybe $22,000. So for us to still get the support of our local businesses, it was just amazing, and we were just really grateful to that $16,000. Our improved website will really help us for future events, because now we can always be a hybrid. Even when we have a live event, we can still utilize that technology for hybrid, and let people get involved who either are unable or unwilling or just can't get to the show, or they can participate from other locations. And one huge coup from this event this year was our webmaster, who has been involved with our website for quite a few years, actually joined our board. So now we have those skills, and that energy and that knowledge as part of our board membership. So we're all excited about that. So just some clips from the show, what our website would look like if you would go to it. It was very easy to navigate. You had the artist youth schedule, which had all the schedule, the map, which I'll show you a picture of. Every artist had this kind of interactive page where from here you could get their Zoom schedule, you could shop their store, you could see their video, and then see also some examples of their work. So every artist had this page created for them. We had this really fun interactive map, and we had all the Merchant Square businesses on it. You could click on that and it would take you to that business. It had all the different artist categories on here. It's just fun, and just we were just excited for the technology. The webmaster made no money off of us doing this. He did it because he just really wanted to kind of improve his technology base, and so he created this for us gratis, which was really nice. And then the live performances. We were at the Williamsburg Lodge for 2 days, all set up. So that shot of Sammy Lee up there in the corner, that's actually a shot of the video, the screens, and what they looked like while they were being captured. We worked with James River Audio Visual Services to do the video and live streaming, and they were an amazing organization to work with. We were so pleased with their services, and the quality and the professionalism of their work. So it all went off. Everything happened the way we said it would. So what does the city support provide to us, and what do we get out of it? It really helps us to do a very robust multimedia marketing campaign, provides the ability to outsource some of our marketing and accounting services. We are able to provide artists with a top-notch show experience. When people come to Williamsburg, when artists come to Williamsburg and are a part of this show, they can just say so much about how they're treated, about how organized it is, about the crowds. They just love coming to Williamsburg, and they love coming to this show. And we have great partnerships as well with your tourism office, with the police, fire, and EMS. We also have a lot of other partner organizations that we're very proud to be able to work with every year. The Williamsburg Area Arts Commission, who provides us with grant funding, the Muscarelli Art Museum and their community outreach coordinator, Steve Prince, has been a big part of our show the past couple of years. Merchant Square Association, Colonial Williamsburg, of course, the Williamsburg Book Festival, Kiwanis Club of Williamsburg, who provides an army of volunteers for us, and the Williamsburg Chamber and Tourism Alliance. So we are looking forward to 2021. All artists who were accepted to the 2020 show are automatically invited and accepted to the 2021 show. We are looking at potentially a lighter performing arts schedule just as we move forward and see what everything holds. But we are working towards a much larger youth art and community activity area, but we want to really engage our youth art portion more, and our community activity more, and really engage that piece of it. We feel like youth art is the future of art, and so we want to make sure we're a big part of that. And of course, continued adherence to any updated health guidelines. We'll be watching all that very carefully as we move forward. And very excited to be working with our new artistic director, Robin Markowitz. Robin is she has directed many art shows. She comes from Rockville, Maryland, and this is really her career, is being an executive director of art shows, and she's super excited to be a part of An Occasion for the Arts. So thank you to the city. We are, again, just so appreciative of all the support that we have received from you, and we hope to have continued support from you. We're super excited to try and get back to a live show in 2021, and that's what we're moving forward with. And we're just we're happy to be a part of City of Williamsburg.
Well, thank you, Ms. Wigley. I can't tell you how disappointing it was for me and everybody else that this past October we had to cancel the Occasion for the Arts event. It is one of those must-see events every year that I think a lot of people really look forward to. And so as we encroach upon 2021 and towards October, we hope that the pandemic is subsided enough and that the event can be held and we can get life back to normal. And this would certainly be a big shot in the arm for us to have this event come back. Talking a little bit about your presentation, it is good to see that there was a silver lining to the virtual event, and that these artists had to step up their game, which ultimately helped them with their online sales and online presence and learning how to do that. I know that we've had some Second Sunday shows, and just talking to some of the artists there, they're all very quick to, and there may be some crossover between what's at Second Sundays and your event, but they're all very quick to say, here's my online presence, welcome to shop online, that type of thing. So I'm glad that there was that silver lining. But again, thank you very much. Vice Mayor Dent, do you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, Ms. Wigley, thank you for the presentation. And as the mayor pointed out, we're obviously all looking forward to having this signature event live again in the city. A couple of thoughts came to mind as you went through the presentation. I know it was a tremendous amount of work for everyone involved to transition to virtual, but assuming and hoping that we're on the other side of this pandemic and everything's back live, there's going to be a significant number of people who are still going to be reluctant to be out in public. So how does your marketing address that to try to encourage people to get back out to a show that they, it's easy if they missed it last year to maybe not feel as compelled to come back. So how does that marketing kind of address that? Or do you have something special lined up for as a kind of a kickoff event that is live again?
We haven't made any final decisions on what the the scope of the show might look like, again, because we are, we're happy to move forward with the 2-day show if that's all we can get out there. And always, of course, keeping in mind whatever health precautions are in place, and whatever health precautions we can encourage people. There still might be a significant amount of mask wearing, and we would probably encourage that, up until that time, and engaging those people who might be still a little intrepid about going out. That's the importance that this web platform now provides. And we're going to encourage our artists to do Facebook Lives, from their booth, to engage that online audience. And they, maybe, to make sure that they're reaching out through social media, and making sure, we're going to make sure that our audience also knows you don't have to come to the show to support the artists. You can engage with them online through our website. I think the improvements we made there will carry us forward a long way. And I think that's the most important message that we can send out to our audience, is that you don't have to come to the show to buy art. You can engage with them online.
Awesome. Thank you. Again, we look forward to the live show again in 2021.
Great. Thank you.
Maslin?
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for the presentation. It was great to see your agility and able to pivot with the pandemic. And I definitely like the hybrid approach for this coming year. It'd be great to be able to have previews and have ability for people to buy online, before and maybe after, and also maybe taking a page from the farmers market, where they're now having online purchases with a central pickup.
That definitely has come has come up in a couple of different conversations. We have not had a board meeting yet for 2021. That's next week is our first board meeting of the year. But absolutely trying to engage hopefully a group that would help us with that. Absolutely, we love the idea of online ordering, drive-by pickup, and I think we definitely want to try and incorporate that into our show this year.
Well, also maybe considering an occasion for the arts crawl. Maybe because we don't know if there's going to be any limitations on sizes. Maybe there could be, exhibits at Merchant Square, Midtown Row, and High Street, so that it's still one weekend, but the crowds aren't there, and it also allows us to help more merchants than just Merchant Square. And maybe we can get WADA involved, hopefully for transportation, so everybody doesn't have to drive all the way. And then finally, if you could maybe reach out to Terry at the Chamber to reserve that weekend for good weather.
That's always, unfortunately, that's what I'm really good at. I was exceptionally good at it last year. I was a little too good at it last year.
But thank you.
Ms. Ramsey?
I would just like to mirror the other comments about thanking you for the presentation. And I think my experience was similar to the comments that you made. The weather was great. I was probably outside. I did not tune in to listen to any of the performers or to really watch any of the virtual experiences. However, I did scope out all of the artists and check their web pages and actually made a purchase or two. And which brings me to a question. How do you all know what purchases were from the Occasion for the Arts? Because mine went strictly to their web page, and there wasn't any reference to it being specifically for AOFTA.
So we do a very involved artist survey after the show. So, and one of the questions we ask is, of course, what were your sales? And since they're doing so few shows, it was very likely that any purchase they got in the couple of days before the show, during the show, or certainly in the week after the show, they could probably attribute to our event. And that's how we, and it's a lot easier when we have a physical show for them to say, yes, I know exactly that all these sales came from this event. So it's the involved artist survey that lets us know what their sales were and what their experience was.
Well, and I appreciate your comments too about this being a help for the artists, because you could tell that some of them I think were a little more familiar with a web platform than others, and so it'll be helpful for them going along. And I too look forward to the 2021 show. I believe since it's gone to a full weekend, it's also been very helpful bringing in people for overnight visitation. So we're always glad to support those types of events. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Nancy, for your presentation. I certainly echo the comments of my council colleagues on how we are looking forward to AOFTA in 2021, but very thankful as well about how you were able to pivot so well to go virtual. With the pivot there in encouraging headshots and online commerce, Facebook live streams and things of that sort, what are some of the things that you're considering going into the first board meeting of 2021 next week that could be used to spread the good word about our return to an in-person occasion for the arts for this October?
So looking forward to the board meeting next week. We have some new energy on the board. We have a couple of new board members, so I'm really looking forward to their input on how we might continue to utilize our lessons learned from this year. So we're gonna be moving forward with, you know, everything, believing that we're gonna have a live show, and it will be as close to 2019 as we can all get, but definitely utilizing all those lessons learned from last year, and making sure that our messaging and the audiences we're reaching out to are inclusive of both our in-person audience and an online, the online virtual participants as well. So it's a lot to consider for next year. I have a great marketing committee, and they had a huge amount on their plate last year, and they really came through, and so I'm sure that they are ready to tackle it for this year.
Yeah, well, the past couple of months have been a trial by fire for everyone, so I'm sure that you all will be able to come back with a fantastic online and in-person presence in these coming months. My last question was the youth art. What's the age range there, and how does some of that outreach work to try to procure artists from the area?
So our youth art section, we invite every elementary, middle school, and high school student in the Williamsburg area, in public and private schools and homeschool, to participate in the youth art component. And it's in a tented area. In 2019, we had 700 pieces of art displayed in that area. And I realized in 2019, when I got highly involved in the youth art portion, how neglected it was, and how much these students have to offer. And how proud they are of this art, and their families who come to see it. And so it just really made me realize that we need to spend some time on this. This is important to these families. This is important to our community. So I've actually very specifically requested money from the Williamsburg Area Arts Commission to purchase new art displays, because what we have been using for the past, I don't know how many years, are abysmal, because I helped set them up and take them down. So I'm not doing that again. And so we need some professional looking displays, because this is really important art. And then, we almost had we're looking forward to a partnership with the Williamsburg Youth Symphony in 2020 to get the youth symphony out there with the youth art. And we were just really looking forward to that. So we definitely want to engage in that. We have this great relationship now with Steve Prince and the Muscarelli, and I don't know if any of he did 2 live drawing broadcasts during the occasion this past year. And the first day he drew SpongeBob SquarePants, and it was just amazing. And then the next day he just drew what he said was a cartoon character, which turned out to be Steve Prince as a cartoon character, and just so engaging. And we are going to utilize that relationship. We are going to, we want Steve Prince to become kind of an ambassador to youth art for us. And so, these are some relationships that we are not going to let go away. And we absolutely believe that the youth art component and the community art component are things that we can focus on that will bring more families and bring more people and engage really that section of the community that I'm embarrassed actually that we, for so many years, we just let it sit. It's this little thing that happened over there in this tent called youth art. And I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen anymore. My legacy as leaving as president, not that I'm leaving, but I want people to, that's what I want. I want youth art to become a star of the show. And moving forward from that we never let youth art just become this little thing that happened off to the side ever again.
Well, I can certainly tell how much you care for the occasion, and how much emphasis you're putting there. And I will say, being the only juried opportunity for youth art in the area and having 700 pieces in 2019, I mean, that's got to be really exciting for some young people who are trying to become artists. So I think
so. You should all know that I come by this by heritage. My mother was the director or the producer of An Occasion for the Arts in the late 1970s and early 80s.
Oh.
So
Good family tradition.
It's a family tradition to have somebody in the family running the occasion.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for the presentation, Nancy, and all that you do. Looking forward to 2021 Occasion for the Arts.
Well, it certainly is a tradition. I know I've been running around there for many years. I didn't realize that it was had been since 51 years now. So it's quite a tradition. We certainly want to continue that tradition. The city certainly does want to be a big partner in that. I hope you all have gotten your grant request in, so that we can put that in the city manager's budget memo to city council, so we can get that done this year. So Ms. Wigley, thank you for all that you've done, your mother's done. We look forward to a great year coming up.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right. So that takes us to item B, presentation, discussion, and direction to staff concerning a public art program. Let's see, and that's going to Michelle DeWitt.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me share my screen as well. Good to see everyone.
Likewise.
Nancy did a great job of queuing this up. So I have a PowerPoint presentation to share with you that talks about some public art, why we're talking about it, and what staff recommends that council discuss about it and some next steps. So does everyone see my presentation now?
Yep.
Great. So, so why are we discussing this? Y'all will recall this is an initiative in your current GIOs, your 2021 and 22 goals, initiatives, and outcomes, but it was also in your last 2 years, your 19-20 goals and initiatives. So we're bringing ideas that staff has researched and looked at what's going around the state and what would make sense for our community. And we're just going to propose some things to you for you then talk about and give us guidance so we can come back with you for a policy adoption in the future. So the first thing, I'm going to show some things that other localities in Virginia have done. We're going to talk about what a definition for public art that would make sense for Williamsburg is, and then those specific recommendations that we have, which is to form a public art council, to provide some funding for public art, to task that arts council with public input and drafting a plan for how to move forward, and then a process for how public art can either be commissioned by the city or accepted by the city if people propose to do that. So I will dive right in. So this may look familiar from last year when we talked about public art. These are two examples in Hampton and in Stanton about a public art process where the city actually issued RFP to get to do projects. And you'll see in Stanton, they came up with this mural that says "You belong here." And in Hampton, they also did a mural that you can see on the bottom left. And this is just to give you an idea of sort of the cost. You can see Stanton, it was a $7,000 project, and Hampton, it was a $10,000 project. Both cities, interestingly enough, issued the RFP twice before they got it right. And they took 112, 124 days. So wanted to give you sort of a time frame of how that happened in some other cities. But when we're talking about here in Williamsburg, wanted to start off with how would we define public art in Williamsburg? And these are some points that we're bringing to you that we think make sense as guidelines and criteria. It's hard to define this, but you need some guidelines and criteria as you're moving forward. So first, we're talking about it being to celebrate the beauty, history, character, and aspirations of the city. Of course, that's very, very broad, but we wanted to have some criteria there. We also think it should be appropriate and appealing to a wide, diverse audience, including children. Also, we have a commercial signage regulation in our zoning ordinance. This is not intended to be commercial signage, but we note that it may reflect a commercial use or the character of the area. And I wanted to point out this example from Charlottesville here, if you can see my mouse. This is an Andy Warhol type of image that is on a camera shop. And there was much discussion in Charlottesville, is that signage or not? And they came down that it was not. This is reflecting that commercial use, certainly, but it's not the logo and the name of the camera shop. So we're suggesting that we take a similar tack, that you could reflect that commercial use, but you're not going to allow someone to put their logo and their name in the art. Since this is public art, it's important that it's accessible to the public. It's also important that it doesn't create a hazard. And block ingress or egress or hurt the safety and well-being of the public. And then lastly, these are permanent installations we're talking about, not cheap. And we struggled with what word to use here, but there's a sense of permanence here. This is not, do y'all remember when the Arts Ninja was putting really fun artwork around? It was, but it was made out of cardboard. And that was fun, but that's not what we're talking about here with public art. We're talking about a permanent installation, something that lasts many, many years. Now into those recommendations of how we would conquer this in Williamsburg. We're recommending the creation of a public art council to have 9 members on it. And you may recall in past discussions, we talked about, do we need the EDA, the ARB, the Planning Commission, the Tourism Group to review this? So we thought our recommendation is that you put 2 city council members on this art council. You put an ARB member, a planning commissioner, a tourism development grant review committee member, an EDA member, an arts commission member. Of course, it would need to be an arts commission member from the city of Williamsburg, and then have 2 community-wide appointees. And that gets you a 9-member public art council that really has a great perspective and is looking at this from a facet, many facets. For funding, we had discussed that a best practice is to look at what a CIP budget number is annually in a city and to dedicate 1% of that to a public fund, and a public art fund. If you look at our CIP budget right now for fiscal year 21, that would be $165,000. That we're probably not at a point where that's going to be spent every year. We may get to that point where there's some really large projects that the public wants, but we're recommending that it be established with that amount of money out of our tourism resiliency funds from COVID-19, and that your public art council be authorized to spend 10% of that annually. If they want to spend beyond that, because there may be a day when we decide there's a 6-figure public art that really makes sense in the city, they would need to come to the city council for that approval if they spent more than 10% in a year. Unused funds would carry forward each year. So you could see, to keep it at 1% of the CIP, it wouldn't be funding it all of that 1% every year unless you chose to do a really big project that year. It would, but the council would be authorized to work within 10% of that budget. We think it's really important, having looked at how other communities have done this, to get public input. This is public art. This reflects the community. We want everyone to share with us what that means in Williamsburg. So we recommend that you task the Public Art Council with having that public input, talk about what is the purpose of art in Williamsburg, what are the best locations for it, and what are some desired themes. And you can see we pulled up many plans that our sister cities have done around the state, and they all hired consultants to do that. But we think they really paved the way for us. We think this can be done by your Public Arts Council and with staff, and not requiring a consultant to come in. So we think that's one of the first things they need to do. And here's how we suggest the process work. A public art application would first come into staff, and we're talking about that being the Economic Development Department. The Tourism Development Specialist is adept at taking an application. She does that with many other programs, including the Williamsburg Area Arts Commission. So the application would start there. There'd be an initial review by staff and the Public Arts Council chair, make sure the application was complete. It met the things in our public art plan, and then a courtesy review by the Architectural Review Board. And this is important. So this would be a recommendation that I'm sorry, got ahead of myself. This would be a recommendation by the ARB. It wouldn't be a veto. It would be them giving input. So if a proposal was in an ARB district, we'd have them pay special attention to any changes that might affect exterior architecture or environmental features in that district. And this is, we're calling this a courtesy review. We think it's really important to hear from the ARB. We hear from many people all the time that the ARB often improves projects. So this, in terms of how the public art relates to the architectural character and the environmental features, we thought was important to get a courtesy review. And then it would come officially to the Public Arts Council for their approval and next steps. And then if the Arts Council wanted to do a large project that was going to be more than 10% of their annual budget, that would require going to City Council. But if they're living within that 10% for that year, they would have that authority to take those actions. So this is just a highlight of all the recommendations I just went through. So you sort of had something to glance at while you're discussing. As a recall, this is an arts and tourism effort. Nancy talked a lot about art and its importance to the community. One thing we've said in the city for many years now is it really can be a tourism asset as well. And maybe at first it's not the thing that draws people to the city, but it's certainly something that enhances their experience while they're here, helps them go home and tell their neighbors to come, leaves that impression in their minds while they're here, and things to talk about and do. And then in the future, you look at the Big Blue Bear in Denver, and that could be a reason for someone to come at some point. So it's really adding on to all those community benefits, the tourism benefit as well. I talked about an application process. I talked about the Arts Council. I talked about review process, public input, and funding. So happy to answer any questions. And we really wanted to hear council's direction, like I said, before we draft a policy to come back to you for formal consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Witt. Maybe I'll kick this off if you don't mind. I think what you've proposed here is a great step forward in making public art come to fruition. I know we've talked about it for many years. And so I particularly like the concept of the Arts Council. I think it wraps in all of the needed bodies, all the needed groups, ARB, EDA, Planning Commission, City Council members, all of which representing those organizations, which will give, I think, significant oversight to make sure that we don't make a mistake as we move through this process. And I think, a lot of people who think of public art often are concerned that we're going to have some gaudy, ugly piece of art somewhere. But I think what you've proposed will help ensure that that doesn't happen. That said, well, so it's not going to happen. And I think we'll have something tasteful. Now, not everybody's going to like what they see, that's for sure. So you've talked about funding for this public art, and I think given the resiliency funds that you've identified would be a good place to start this. And when you talk about using 10% of that annually, up to 10% or up for a project, that doesn't exclude private money coming in to support a project. For example, if Midtown Row wants to put a mural on the back of a building inside their complex, as we see it from Monticello, that project may be $50,000, and I'm just making up numbers. They have the opportunity to apply for some additional funding from this program. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Okay, so I'm very pleased with this. So with that, I'll turn it. I don't have any other questions at the moment, so I'll go to Vice Mayor Dent.
Thanks, Michelle, for the presentation, and the mayor hit on the points that really stood out to me as well. And I like the idea of the Arts Council, because I think it provides that diverse group, and we get the input that's necessary. And also agree that the consistency with having that council, we don't have any big variance from the proposals that are presented to council, and also agree that a funding mechanism is necessary, or it may not happen at all. So I like the idea of establishing a funding mechanism. And as you said, we realizing that even though it's limited at that 10%, that some big project may come along that we think would have a big impact that council could approve, and spending more of that 10%. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's a simplistic approach to it to get this moving forward. So that's my thoughts for now.
Mr. Maslin?
Yeah. One thing in terms of background, we had a good meeting with the city manager this morning, and what was new information to me was if Midtown Row wanted to have a mural in their complex, the city has no way to actually review and approve that. Is that right, Drew? Yeah.
Yeah, we have, a couple different times since I've been here, we've had a couple different locations interested in pursuing a mural, and we don't have a vehicle to even consider it.
Yeah, thanks. A couple of recommendations or ideas to sort of throw out to staff to look at. Maybe there's some way we can have William and Mary arts community represented. We don't want to make the council too big, but at least make sure we've got the ability to get their input there, since they're a big part of the arts community here in Williamsburg. Also, how can we think out of the box? We've been talking about traditional art. Is there opportunity for digital art? Is there an opportunity for a live component to the art? What about having a revolving art canvas so that it's temporary art's allowed on certain canvases, and that maybe gives more opportunity to the youth artists to actually contribute to that. I guess, and I understand that the difficulty with using the word permanent. I think if we look at our municipal buildings, we've found that some of them are obsolete within 40 years. So certainly art maybe has a shorter shelf life than our buildings. And how can we, maybe when we're approving the art, sort of have a window for how long we think that art should be there? Because the longer it's there, it's good from stability, but it also is blocking, future creative efforts in that space. So maybe having some flexibility there. And that's all I had. Thanks.
Ms. Ramsey?
Thank you. And thank you, Michelle, for the presentation. I think for those of us who were present on council when the last presentation was made, that at least I'm very pleased with this new way of thinking about things and the way you've put it together. I think it's a lot less cumbersome and very sort of to the point, which I appreciate. I also like the way that the council has been proposed, similar to the TDF Grant Review Committee, where you get people to review and provide input and expertise before it's gone to the next phase. So I think having the different members there will really make a good way to move this forward. And I think it's well known that I'm very supportive of public art. As I travel around different places, I notice other communities and how well it's received, and also it becomes a place for me to try and check out. I mean, when I was in Chicago, one of the big tourist draws is the Bean downtown, and just shows that it can be a big tourism factor. And as you said, art is in the eye of the beholder, and so it's not always going to be exactly what everyone likes, but we have a lot of locations in the city that we can spread out different types of art. And I think that's one thing that the public perhaps needs to also realize, is that we're not just talking about Merchant Square, that we have a lot of different areas of the city where we can have art and actually benefit those communities, whether it be along Capitol Landing Road or Midtown Row or High Street and places like that. And I think that we've seen evidence of how art can create a more inviting place, as in Bicentennial Park. I think when putting the benches in there and a couple more statues and getting it cleaned up, it's really become a place where people gather and visit and walk, and the art has become a little bit more of a focal point there. True, we've had the pandemic and people have been outside, but I think that the attention that was paid to the park, again, with the addition of some art, has made a difference. I also like having the funds sort of earmarked and corralled. I think we recognize what happens when that doesn't occur, like the Forest softball field at Kiwanis Park being on the list for 20 plus years, and rolling from year to year. So I'm all in favor of that. And I think we'll probably get lots of different ideas from the various applications. I do think Mr. Maslin had a good point with flexibility as far as permanence, because being a small community, we only have so many areas where we can put things, and particularly when you're talking about murals, we want to stay up with the times. And I think Yuri even had some instances where she had seen they had more of some revolving screens. And so I get the permanence, but also the temporariness to it. So all in favor, very supportive, and thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers.
I certainly echo all of the appreciation shown to city staff. This is a fantastic idea. I remember listening in to the last meeting in which it was discussed and being very excited. And one of the few silver linings and sort of what we've all endured the last couple of months is it has in some ways provided funds for us to kickstart this program. So that's very exciting. And I do think it works well in how many people representing different bodies are brought in for the Public Arts Commission. So I'm sure that they will do the best they can to represent the different facets of the community they come from. I had a couple of thoughts on this. The first, I wanted to iterate, of course, the flexibility of permanence. I certainly agree with just a rotation of art. I think would keep people interested, excited to see the new thing. And certainly, like you said, Director DeWitt, going back to their home communities and saying, wow, Williamsburg was so vibrant. They had a new piece different than when I last saw it. The two others would be the talks of a public sort of method of trying to place art and then a private one. I don't think this would be something to work into the presentation, but it might just be good for us or Joanna to start considering is how could the Arts Commission itself or how could the city try to drive art in a certain area. I can see after a while and having the good funding source we do right now, years have gone by, the Arts Commission is doing well, the Public Art Commission, and we've recognized that there's an area of the city that hasn't had any applicants trying to put a piece of public art there. And so it may be interesting to see how the Public Arts Commission could almost be proactive in that way of suggesting art to go somewhere. The first one that comes to my mind right now is replacing the once location of the obelisk that we removed in July, which is now just a slightly less dusty square. So that might be nice to provide another centerpiece for that park. And the second was, at least for the 2 members that are appointed from the public, I think it would be smart to have their terms be a bit shorter than we may see on some of our other boards and commissions, 2 years. That way we're able to have a rotation of people, as I think this board will be one that is sought after and a really interesting way to get involved with the city. But the particular people who may apply, the applicants, are likely folks who, while loving public art, are busy with other endeavors and might be able to put in, at least in their heads, just a couple of years on it before wanting to rotate someone else in. So I would recommend a little bit shorter terms for the community appointees, as I'm sure we'll have a lot of people very interested. But thank you so much for the work you did to put this together. Certainly excited to see it under the economic development's wing, as I really do believe that, like you said, it helps with bringing people back, but it certainly also helps with encouraging tourism in the Chicago Beam or in plenty of other good examples around the world. Thank you very much again. I'm excited to be in support.
Yes, Barb? Yeah, Ms. Ramsey?
I have a question. To Caleb's point, Michelle, what is the term on the TDF Grant Review Committee?
Those terms are two-year terms.
Okay.
Because we just had, and I hesitate because the appointees from the EDA and from the other boards and commissions, the chairman makes those appointees, but that's for 2 years if they continue to serve. If they rotate off that commission. I'm getting way too in the weeds. It's 2 years.
Okay, thank you.
So Michelle, Andrew, I think you've got what you need from council. What would be the next step? Do we need to formally create an arts commission or an arts council? Does that require a certain action on city council's behalf?
Well, you know how government loves paperwork. So now we will go and create the paperwork that will establish this process and bring that back to you, hopefully in February.
Well, let's make it quicker than rolling out the vaccine. Okay. Anybody else have anything on that? Good. So we'll move on. So city council communications. Does any member of council have anything they'd like to share with us? Nope. Seeing none. It's been Ms. Ramsey.
Just that we have an EDA meeting this week on Wednesday.
Good. Yeah, last couple of weeks have been quiet due to the holidays, so we haven't had a whole lot of meetings. So that's been a good thing for a little break for everybody. Mr. Maslin, yes, sir.
Michelle, do you want to give a little blurb on the roundtable, economic development roundtable?
Happy to, Councilman Maslin. Tomorrow is our monthly business roundtable that the EDA hosts, and Adria Van Hooser, who's the president of Doctors Hospital, the Riverside Hospital, will be speaking about Riverside Hospital, but specifically about COVID-19. And we did talk to her today. She's happy to take live Q&A, which we're super appreciative of. So please, everyone, join us. We do not have a limit on how many people can join that virtual event.
Thank you. Okay, schedule meetings, Mr. Trivett.
Yeah, so I was going to highlight the roundtable, but Michelle did that for me and saved me from having to pronounce Ms. Van Hooser's first name. So I was appreciative of that. The meetings, of course, for boards and commissions have gone virtual. And so all of the meetings that we're having in the next little bit are virtual, including the Arts Council or the Arts Commission, the Williamsburg Area Arts Commission, which will be meeting on the 14th. And then the Planning Commission is scheduled to meet on the 20th.
Okay, good. Mr. Barham, Ms. Felico, any open forum communications?
No, sir, there are no call-ins at this time.
Okay, so they'll have no forum. So I do believe we have an item for a closed session. Vice Mayor Dent, is that true?
We do. I move to go into closed session pursuant to section 2.2-3711 per subparagraph 29 regarding one matter involving the discussion of the award of public contract and the expenditure of public funds, including interviews of bidders or offers and the terms and scope of such contract, where discussion in open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body concerning the fire station construction.
Second.
Thank you,
Mr. Rogers,
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey,
Aye.
Mayor Pons,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent,
Aye.
Mr. Maslin.
Aye.
Okay, so you all should have in your calendar of events the meeting to move to from here. Once that's done, we'll come back to this meeting for the public, if there's anybody still watching, to certify the closed session and close the meeting. So we'll see you in the next meeting. Thank you.